1 year ago, my world came apart. I was a professional educator and woman in ministry. I had been married for over 30 years, was a mother of 2 adult professionals and a grandmother of 2 beautiful grandchildren. I had attained the highest level of degrees and received Lifetime Achievement Awards. I knew that I had fought to live above inner turmoil that I could never explain. But my faith and strength had helped me live the life of my dreams. I also knew I couldn't do it anymore, but I didn't know why. I woke up with feelings of dread and anxiety every single day, and I was exhausted. I believed in the abundant life that Jesus promised, but I knew I wasn't living it. I should have been. My life was wonderful, but I was miserable. Through a series of obvious God-designed circumstances, I found myself in a therapist's office. Through the use of EMDR therapy, I soon came to the realization that I had lived my life as multiple personalities as a result of attachment issues and subsequent childhood sexual abuse at the age of 3. I fought the truth, but I knew it was true. I had always known it was true. I always thought that therapists would trick me into believing what I knew, if I was honest, was true. I had been abused. The fact that it had fractured me and I was living with a dissociative disorder was nothing I could have ever imagined. But it made so much sense. It explained so much. I approached therapy, like everything in my life, with a vengeance. I catapulted myself through hours and hours of intense therapy. I walked away from my life I could no longer live and clung to my family. My husband, my therapist worked together to care for me. I peeled layer after layer after layer from my tortured soul. I rejected faith and found faith. I processed and then researched. I watched as God placed people, circumstances, and information in my path towards healing. I could not stop because every place I landed was too painful to remain there. I had to believe that I could heal completely. I still believe that, but I'm not there. When I am fully healed and feel safe in sharing without anonymity, I will come forward. But for now, I am using this venue to share the important truths I have learned on my journey. For the good of others, maybe denying the truth that they know is within them. The following is a portion of a letter to my children and closest friends. It was a part of my finding freedom through sharing my story and heart with those I knew who would love and protect me. It is my cry as I tried to build my life out of the ashes.
Understand that the damage done to small humans creates behavior at every age that may look like sin, but it is not. Please listen to their cries for help.
To help each other heal and walk. That is perfect.
Okay. Hi.
Oh my gosh.
Here we are.
Oh no, I got to put it in for a second.
So, oh my word. I mean, you dropped into my life this week and I was like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, not that I forgot that I did it,
Right.
but I just kind of forgot
Yeah.
what I had said and where I was when I said it.
Yeah. Powerful.
Yes. And I shared it with a friend last night and she said, oh, it sounds just like you. You guys, you did such an honoring job of reading it. I mean, when I knew that when I listened to it the first time, it's hard when someone else reads your words. But I have never been uncomfortable with it. I felt that it was so honoring in how you read it. It sounded like I would have read it. I think I read it to you. So maybe that helped. But anyway, it was an amazing thing. And I thank you for doing that.
Oh, I will tell you, I remember when she and I were recording it, and I just sat still for a minute and just kind of got really present with just the words, and tried to go as slow as possible because each word was significant. I mean, it was amazing. There was one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, because I was worried about how people would receive some of this.
Right.
Um,
Oh, so was I. That's why I was anonymous for 4 years.
well,
So please ask that question.
well, I was wondering a couple of things. One, how do you think Christian people heard that? People of the Christian denomination.
I think it would depend on whether it was read 4 years ago or read now.
Okay.
I think that what I felt about mental health in the church at that time was very valid, but it was not understood very well,
Right.
and possibly not even for another 2 years. I mean, as I listened to what I said, I realized that I caught a wave. I really did catch a wave with my healing process and finding my voice and beginning to speak and not having to hide behind you guys. That really the church is beginning to understand mental health, to understand, and you have followed my path.
Yeah.
And this year, well, actually beginning last fall, the doors to speak to the church opened up for me. And where I say in the video, I say that when I get to the other side of this, I want to shout it from the rooftops.
Yes. Yes.
Well, the one that I did, the video that I did, webinar that I did for Key Ministry, which I'm so honored that they asked me last week before, it's had 4,000 views. And so, especially during this pandemic, and we're understanding that mental health issues are the second pandemic. I mean, we're going to come out on the other side of this with a lot of mental health issues, and as angry as sometimes I've been at the church because I didn't get help, I see them trying to prepare for that. See them really trying to understand, what does that mean to us and how can we help people? So I was right in being concerned about sharing.
Yes, yeah.
And I wasn't ready. I was not emotionally healed well enough to come out and publicly say that.
Yeah.
But I'm so thankful for this opportunity to say that it's been 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years.
In the 4 years that have passed since I penned those words, I have seen the church turn a corner and become concerned. And they're welcoming my voice, which I a lot of times say things that are hard truths. And I'm learning to not have panic attacks when I do that, and I'm not backing away from it, because I think I'm unique in that I didn't leave the church. I'm not angry with the church. I just want us to do better. I want us to do better.
I think that was one of the main themes. It was, so a couple of things leapt out at me. One, you covered trauma. Like you said, this is a result of trauma.
Yes.
Mental illness is a result of trauma. Now, some people have mental health issues because they're born with a chemical imbalance. But for you, this occurred as an event that then triggered how your coping mechanism would work.
Correct.
And with that, your behaviors, you said, I love this part where it said, watch the behaviors, they're telling you something. Yes.
And I was only a year into therapy when I said that. My understanding, I mean, I listened to that this week, and I was like, I really did get it even early on. I mean, it was when I realized, and I do say there are medical reasons for people to have mental health issues. You know, that wasn't what I was talking about at that point, but I do thank you for stating that, because I don't try to make every mental health issue into a
trauma or an abuse.
And into yes, I said that just backwards. Into trauma or abuse. Please switch my words around when I say them, just the opposite of what I'm trying to say. Oh my word. So I also don't try to make them into a spiritual problem. You know,
Right.
you have to look at the whole thing. You have to look at, I mean, was part of my journey a spiritual journey? Yes, but it wasn't. And so it's really interesting because let me just say that if that was 4 years ago, then 2 years ago was when, and will this show up right?
Yeah, but I'm going to ask you to send me pictures of that too, so I can slide them in during our talk.
Okay, good.
That's
and
the first one, right?
Because this was the first one, and then I published the second one, and the third one is coming out in May.
That's great.
And so it's a trilogy. And
right.
So the first one talks about my healing journey. The second one talks about me as a child,
right,
and my behaviors and understanding trauma-related behaviors in children. And then the third one is my church journey. And so it is the spiritual piece. So
awesome.
Basically it is my piece that I do stand on the rooftop and
yell.
And yell, right?
And try to bring the church along.
Yes. And they're ready. And it's been delayed. Both my publisher editor and my sister-in-law designs the covers for my books.
Oh.
And we married brothers. We've been friends for forever. And she both had COVID-19. Oh. And they're recovering now. And so the book has been delayed. And, I'm like, oh, just live. Whatever about the book, right? Just you guys live. I love you, and I don't want anything to happen to you. So it has been delayed, and because a lot of books are being delayed because of the shutdown, right. Everything. So, but the timing is right. And so when you contacted me, I went, oh, this is just another piece of this, isn't it? That I go back and rediscover what I said.
I will tell you, it's very interesting, the 3 books and the way we did 3 sets to read your letter. And, yes. And in that, it was, this is where my journey started. And then you go into, you referred to the body, and I think you meant the church when you were saying the body.
I'm trying to think what that was, because I could have, part of my understanding was that the trauma was in my body.
You were, the thing that you said, the thing that was unwavering to me was you never lost your faith in your belief in Jesus Christ.
Right. I never did.
Your situation, I think, with some of the ways that you acted out, and I don't know specifically what those are, but the church would frown on. And I think you referred to the church by saying, like, the body of Christ, as meaning the church.
Yes, meaning the church. Yes, I would have probably, I'm trying to remember.
Right.
I was crying rivers as I listened to it again. My husband was watching me. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. So, yes. And so it wasn't, my faith never wavered.
Right.
In fact, it became stronger. It is so much stronger. My what I believe about God and is not based on a human idea of what God can do and can't, I understood that God never, and I talk about that in my books. They're not spiritual journey books. The third one is, but these aren't, because I wanted it to be out, everybody to be able to gain healing. But I talk about the fact that God never wanted what happened to me. He wasn't didn't allow it, didn't cause it, didn't think it was a good idea that it would build character in me. You know, I was a little girl, a little innocent girl, and I should have been able to live my life without that kind of pain.
Yeah.
Now, can God bring the good out of it? Well, here I sit.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you know, if you think about it, Jane, because of your journey, your anger at the church, at not understanding, forced you to either leave the church or create change in the church. And we don't have to leave our churches, synagogues, temples. What we have to do is tell our story and say, you got to get on board. You got to get on board. Like, you people run the church, and God inspires the people. So we've got to get the church to recognize that mental health is an issue that has to be talked about. In our behaviors, as you said, the sins are behaviors that are cries for help.
Right. And, you know, in one part of the video, and I said this to Scott after he watched me, you know, convulse and calm down.
Scott, your husband.
Scott is my husband, yes. And we were married 40 years last year, which is some kind of miracle, you know. So, but when I was talking at the end, I said, you know, the only thing that I would say differently, and it had to do with the phase I was at in my therapy, was that I was still blaming myself for some things that I felt were my choices that were not. And so in the middle of that, I say, I made some choices. Well, once I understood it better, there was an entire, so in my first book, I talk about when I tried to run my car off a cliff, and when I was 24, and I, because I blamed myself for what happened that day, and actually it was a freeze response, and I was raped. But because I froze, I took on the responsibility for it, because I didn't fight and I didn't try to run away, and I took on the responsibility for that. And so I talk about that in the first book, but I wasn't there yet when we recorded the video, when I wrote that piece. I'm like, wait, sometimes I feel like I read it, so I get confused. So, so I think that part in there, I thought was really interesting, because I was still blaming myself, even though that memory had not surfaced of me on the cliff. I subconsciously, I was still blaming myself for what happened that day. And so when that came, I would be even more adamant to say that so many, and I talk about that in my third book, so many of our choices that we make are subconsciously driven by trauma and internalized messages, which we gained along the way, which are not correct.
Correct. That is right. Yes. Amen.
Yes. And so I'm even after I finally got to the cliff and I unwound all of that, which was layers upon layers, I would never have made that statement now.
Right. Right. I think it's a great thing to bring forth, is that people that have had trauma don't get to make choices the way people who have not had trauma do. And so until, it's almost as if there's a repeat of the pattern, right? Until you can break the pattern.
Absolutely. I talk about in my next book, I talk about the fact that my teaching, because I taught in Bible colleges for 33 years, and that was actually a trauma loop. I mean, I don't regret the students that I helped. I have so many friends, I don't regret any of those, but there were times when I was mistreated, and I talk about those in the book, when I should have walked away and said, this is not my problem. But I internalized it as my own problem and got stuck in that loop and just kept returning to it and repeating it and accepting things that I should have never ever accepted as treatment of me. And so and then in the middle of that, there were wonderful, good people who took care of me and loved me, and I would never have made it through Raise My Family without this. And that's kind of my third book, is that mixture of, and that's the truth. One of the things you have to do when you're healing is that you have to hold two truths in your hands at the same time. That the people, the church who hurt you was the church who saved you, right?
Right.
And that's what I really do now, is I say, we can do better. We can look at these parts where I was deeply hurt by the church, and we can keep ourselves from doing that to people. And I think I spoke at a theology conference in February. It's kind of funny. How did I end out at a theology conference? But anyway, I did. And they were good and accepting, wonderful people. It was at Northwest Nazarene University at their Wesleyan conference. And it was all on disabilities in the church, which they included mental health. And so I went, and they had me speak twice. In fact, you can find the video of it on my website. So, but anyway, I said in that our concept of sin, that we blanket everything in that category, when in reality, in the Wesleyan tradition of theology, nuances that and doesn't make it just a word that covers everything. We nuance it into, and that provides the opportunity to say, was that thing I did a good idea? No, but it was driven by something that that was so subconscious and so damaged that I was not completely able to make choices. And so, and you said that before, so I don't know how long you wanted this to be. I could talk all day.
I think one of the things that you've said, there are two things that are for sure, is holding these two concepts when you're healing. Always the question we ask is, what does healing mean to you? How do you heal?
That's an amazing question, actually, and one that I actually wrote a blog, because people would say, well, what do you mean by healing? What is that? And I think maybe at the point where I gave you the piece to read, I was still hoping for a magic wand. That I'm going to go through this whole process, and I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be absolutely perfect. And so, and after a while, okay, you might be getting ready to hear a dog bark because the UPS truck is arriving. So anyway, I had to get over the fact that it wasn't ever going to be as if it never happened to be.
Right.
I mean, when anyone who reads Brave, I mean, I have people, they've known me my whole life. And when they read Brave, the first time they see me, well, before we couldn't hug, they just want to hug me, and because it is so much happened to me. And so that I was never going to get to where that just didn't happen. Right. And so I came to understand that healing means that I have a toolbox that I carry with me every day, with all of the things that help me to calm myself, that I know what to do when I get triggered. So yesterday we had a little incident with one of our dogs that got loose, and he would never hurt anybody, but he's really scary, and he frightened two little dogs, and I just came apart. I mean, I had a flashback. I did the whole thing, but then on the other side of that, I started shaking. I said, okay. So my grandchildren were watching me, and I said, now see, this is a trauma response. And so I gave them this little mini lecture, meltdown, about how important it is to let your body get off, right? So, and you understand the importance of that.
Yes.
And so I said, I just need to shake it off. So I went and sat on the front porch, shook it off. And I said, okay, now I just need to get out of here for a little bit. So we went on a drive. We got some takeout food, went and sat. And then I went and walked. I said, I need to walk this off. I need to walk and walk and walk. And then I came home and I said, now I need to get a good night's sleep. And so I made sure that so I have a toolbox, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
So that's what healing is to me, is that I know what to do, that I don't run away from the feelings. And I needed to understand that the reason I got so terrified was that it flashed back to when my dog did get attacked in the RV park before we moved. Yeah. And I got bit, but I had tons of layers on, so it didn't break the skin. So I had a flashback to that, which people who develop PTSD as children, they're always prone to developing new layers of PTSD unless they fully process it. And so, so anyway, that's what I would say healing is. Healing is that you acknowledge, you understand what happened to you. You don't try to run away from it. You don't try to distance yourself, dissociate from it, downplay it. You accept it exactly as it is. You understand the trigger when it happens. You're curious about it. Oh, that was obviously a trigger. Let's figure out what to do about that. And then you have a toolbox of things to calm yourself so that you can move on without adding another layer to yourself. Mm-hmm. So that kind of is the picture of what I understand healing to be now.
Right. And you healed with help, obviously. You healed you, but you are also healing your relationship with the church.
Yes. And part of that is I walk toward it. Right. Now, I will say after, okay, so, and we should probably mention in here that it was EMDR in the midst of my therapy which helped to bring the trauma out of my body, and that was so important. But also that after we met, let's see, probably maybe even a year after that, because there were more really difficult things that happened that were connected to the church after I wrote that piece. And so I had to walk away. I had to leave. I had to just say, church is not in the game plan for right now, because I need to separate myself from all of the parts that are not about God and just find God. I just need to find God. I don't need to hear the talking heads. I don't need to feel the shame. I don't need to feel frustrated by the people who aren't displaying characteristics of God, right? I just need to find God. And so I did. I left for 2 years. And then we moved up here, and there's a lovely, lovely church where my grandson got involved with the youth group, and he plays the cello on Sunday morning. And the church is becoming a new family to me. It's Bethel Nazarene, and they're just lovely people. And so that is part of the healing, but I have to keep walking toward it. That's right. I have to go, I have to. My therapist would say, Janyne,
Not have to.
I feel her go, Janyne. Okay, so I don't have to. I want to, because I really do want the church understand it better, and I want to keep walking toward it so that I'm not kept from the important things I could do to help the church. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. What I think, just to put a point on it, what you said was, like any relationship, you had to leave the church that you were involved in, and you had to find God within yourself and your understanding of God without any interruptions or any interference. And,
yes.
And when you found God, you could come back to a place where you could worship in a community.
Yes.
The relationship was then healthy.
Right. I had to, it's kind of like, maybe it's getting overused now, but the illustration when the oxygen drops on the airplane, I had to go take care of myself. Right. I had to go, and a lot of times in the church, they want to say, well, you're falling away. God. No, I'm not. I'm finding God. I never fallen away from God. I just needed the space to be able to find God on my own terms. And so it, it's kind of a, you very seldom do you pick up a quote unquote Christian book that says maybe you need to leave the church.
Take a break. And
that's really what I did. And then and then we moved to Washington, and our life kind of started anew. And So I'm doing a Zoom Bible study, a 3-week right now for the church, and I'm doing it on Just Breathe. And last week I talked about the vagus nerve and how to activate it, and how and how a sigh is actually a way to, so we sigh all the time, right? And that what we're really doing is activating the vagus nerve. It's our inborn way of calming ourselves by sighing. So my work in trauma, which I'm on the board of directors for the Attachment and Trauma Network also.
Wow.
I don't know if you picked up on that on the way, which is kind of I'm so honored, and they're doing such important work. And the last thing I did before I came home and isolated was we had a conference for trauma sensitive schools in Atlanta. We had 1,700 people, and now we're trying to figure out what's that going to look like next year, right? How do we do that in this new world that we live in? And so anyway, but that's a whole board problem right off here to the side. But we're doing the people who work for ATN and the volunteers are doing amazing work trying to help people right now. So I'm really proud to be part of that. So anyway, I kind of got lost on where I was going there. I do that when I get excited about ATN.
Well, I think what you're telling me is that you're doing some things now that have to do with trauma.
Thank you so much.
Right.
My work with the church, my work with schools, like in a 2-week period, I spoke at the conference, I spoke at an elementary school, and I spoke at a theology conference. So I run in a whole bunch of different lanes, and it's like I'm developing a me that doesn't have to split those apart. And you're just kind of you're another lane. How we met is so cool. I mean, I can still see your RV pulling in next to mine. I'm sitting there in my chair looking out the window, and the way you parked it, your logo was just right framed in the window, So, I mean that, and I was like, this is important. I didn't know, we can't know why it's important, but it's really important. And now I even understand. I understand it even better. And you two gave me my voice.
Oh.
I mean, that was really the very first time that I did, even though it was incognito, I did get on the rooftop. You let me know that it was possible for me to do that. And I'm forever grateful to you.
I remember you, thank you. I remember you sitting in the RV with Jennifer and I and talking to us about kind of what was going on for you. And it was so important. I was like, wait, this is what we're here for. We're here to tell the stories of people healing and in the process of healing and trying to figure this out. And when I talked to the editors, I was like, hold on just a second. Let me see if I can get Jane, because I want to be able to just talk to you a little bit about where you are now.
Yes, and where I am now is light years. It's light years from where I was, but I'm still the same person.
Amazing.
Right? I mean, I'm a much more healed version of that person, but my passion is exactly the same. And that, I think that's important. It was like a time capsule.
Yeah.
That got stored away for me, that I had left behind and didn't really think about. We see each other on Facebook and stuff, but I hadn't really thought about what I had put out there to the world.
Oh.
And in a time capsule is what I did. Just this little picture of where I was. And as I listened to it, I think one of the reasons I cried was that I was being so brave in what I wrote, but I couldn't be brave in my world yet.
No, well, but there's times when it's not safe. That's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I see some people that go out and start talking too soon.
Right, all the time.
Yeah.
all the time. And you're like,
All excited about, they've discovered, oh, this wasn't my fault. And they get so excited and they run out there and they start talking and they get destroyed, or they extend themselves beyond what they can do. And so I think that I had my therapist was a great support system, and that I waited and waited. And I think with this next book that's been delayed, I was talking to my friend last night who wrote the foreword, and she said it'll come when it's supposed to come.
yes. Well, that's this documentary. It came when it was time for it to come.
Yes.
So I want to kind of just do a quick intake for you on how we're going to bring you in. So what I'm going to do is what I did not do with you the first time, because we couldn't, which normally when I come online with somebody or I come to a conversation, I usually say, would you be kind enough to tell us your full name?
Yes. And it's Janyne McConnaughey.
It's Dr.
Janyne McConnaughey. Yes. And that's kind of funny because I had to remind myself while I was healing, by the way, but it's really, okay, so my book covers, people look down it. It says brave. Okay, brave, a personal story of healing childhood trauma. And then you see the bicycle, which is everything. And then you go down and it says Janyne McConnaughey, PhD. And you can see people's eyes go up. Like I can see when they're looking down the cover. And my brother said to me, he was the one who encouraged me to get my doctorate. And he said, this will be more valuable to you after you retire. It was prophetic, truly prophetic, because it provides I don't know, it provides a stamp on my voice.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
And I don't personally need a stamp on my voice. I know who I am. I don't need to be validated, but it opens so many doors that would not be open to me without that PhD after my name. So yes, Dr. Janyne McConnaughey. Yes.
And if people want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
So I have a website, and it is janyne.org. So and it under the resources section has a lot of my blog. Well, there's a blog with it, but it has a lot of my interviews I've done, and I need to update it. I've got several that I haven't gotten up there yet. Also, I'm on Facebook. I have Janyne McConnaughey author page where I post a lot of my trauma related and book related things. And then I'm also helping with a dissociative identity disorder Devon page that a woman, three of us actually, we're in Australia, England, and the United States, and we cooperate in just an informative and support page for people with or without dissociative identity disorder. It's an open page, but so there's and then I have a page that I just have fun with, and so I'm everywhere. If you just Google me, I'm like 8 pages deep, and I don't have any idea how that happened. I have no idea. I do it every once in a while, and I go, wow, I never saw that coming. So yeah, so I'm pretty easy to find as long as you get my name spelled right.
And then the last question is do we have permission to use your filming today in the documentary?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. I am not hiding anymore.
Right.
And you were my friends, and you were an important part of my life.
I will tell you what, it is amazing to have watched your journey. I mean, simply amazing. Who would have thought we would be here right now?
No.
For all this time. And I will tell you, I think one of the things that I took away, because I re-listened, obviously, even though I read it and even though I've listened to it a few times over the years, I re-listened again today. And some of the end things that you talked about was treating people with kindness. treating people well, that you had people that loved and supported you, and how important that was for you. And I thought that was one of the ways that we can all help each other heal.
Yes. And my husband and I were kind of having a conversation this morning about all the really simple ways that people can support each other.
Yeah.
Just I have a lot of times people will read Brave and then they'll communicate with me, and through my website. They can email me through my website, and they say, I think I need therapy. And I'm like, okay. So I have on my page, I have a place where under about information that kind of gives some guidelines for looking for a therapist that deals with trauma. And so I guide them there, and then I help them the best I can. And I have several who have access therapy, and they're in the healing process, and they know they can email me. I'm not a therapist, and I'm not going to take on that job,
Right.
but I can be a support. And I did a blog about about sticky tape and about sticking by people who are in therapy. It is such a lonely time where you feel like you're alone. And so I do all that I can to really support people as they go through that process. And once they heal, then they get independent, and they, I'm like, hi, are you okay out there? And they're like, yeah, I'm doing really good. Right. And they write me and tell me how proud they are that they're, and so, but I think it doesn't take much.
Right.
It doesn't take much to care about other people and to help them on their journey. But we have to set judgment aside first. We have to set aside what the reasons we believe in our head why they're acting a certain way.
Right.
And so, yeah. And I don't know, I think you two modeled that for me that day.
Well, I hope so. I hope so. I honestly, I mean that quite sincerely, because that was, Jennifer and I both have been through our healing paths. And so I think if we couldn't extend that kindness, what was the point of the project?
What was the point of that? Right. Yeah. That's exactly right. Well, you did a great job. I can't believe I gave you that document. I mean, I'm so, the trust I had for you was really, because I was terrified. And when you read it, I was like, can anybody figure out it's me? I was still,
I remember that. I was
so afraid. And now I have a blog that I did on shame. And at the end of it, I say, now on the other side of this, I don't know what I was afraid of.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, if I were to take all my writing and put it down into one little sentence, it would be healing maybe is not knowing why you were so afraid of telling your own story.
Wow. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah, that hits me.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was so afraid.
Yeah. And that's when I listened to your reading of what I had read and the feeling that I had, I went back to that feeling of how afraid I was. And I'm like, why was I so afraid? Yeah. Why was I so afraid? That's what shame does to us. That's the cage that it puts us in, is that we believe that that's what caused all of my problems, was my fear that if anyone truly knew me, they would reject me.
I think that's it. I have to tell you, hopefully, if nobody takes anything else away from the different modalities that we're trying to offer, it's okay to be afraid and keep moving forward.
Yes.
You're going to be afraid, but keep reaching out.
Yes.
You're going to be afraid, but find a helper.
Right. Because fear will keep you where you never wanted to be.
Right.
And I remember when I went for my first massage, I was terrified.
Yeah.
Now I wish I was back in Colorado with my, when I went to yoga for the first time, I was terrified. I mean, everything that I've done to heal myself has involved fear. I had to walk through it. And that's why when I went to title my book, I was like, oh,
brave.
You just have to be brave. You just, You just have to be. So to go from as terrified as I was, I'm loving this conversation, by the way, you can edit out any, okay, so, but as afraid as I was when I gave you that, you know, to end out publishing this, right?
Yeah.
Is that's healing.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I think that's the product. The path is different than some of the outcomes.
Right.
Healing is in the path.
So the really funny thing about this cover is that in the story, there's a reason. I'm not giving it away, but there's a reason that there's a bicycle on the front of it,
Okay.
right? So what I didn't know was that the bicycle would become a symbol for healing. I have people send me bicycle pictures all the time. All the time. I have, in fact, I don't know if it's available. I may have it locked down, but I'm kind of collecting them on my website. All the pictures that people send me. I mean, they're in stores and they'll see a blue bicycle and they'll snap a picture and send it to me, you know? And so it's just become this, I never dreamed that was going to happen with this blue bicycle. I'm kind of obsessed with it now. But my sister-in-law, bless her, it was a white bicycle. And I'm like, oh, it's so perfect. I just need the bicycle to be blue. And she photoshopped it to blue. And the most beautiful job doing that ever. And so
That's a beautiful cover.
it is a beautiful, you know, Jack Canfield?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I went to one of his seminars and I handed him one of my cards for my books. And he said, is that your book? Yes, that's my book, because I believed I could. And I did. And he said, good for you. That is an amazing cover. You know,
It is.
I texted my sister-in-law. It's an amazing cover. Jack Canfield said it was amazing. You know, it's pretty funny. So, but it's a symbol.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and
A lighthouse.
yeah, it is. And who would think that a bicycle would end up to be that? But it does.